Hi everyone, it's been some time and today I will be sharing with you with this premium motherboard coming from Asus known as the Rog Crosshair X870E Hero. I'd like to thank Asus Singapore to have provided this unit for me to share with you guys. The first thing when you purchase this board, the packing is so solid. In fact, the box is very beefy, see? And it is very heavy, which I will show you why is it so heavy based on the motherboard itself. And as you can see at the back, with a very nice blueprint of the board and the rest of the the specification and such. Now when you purchase this, and what do you get inside the box? First of all, the main motherboard, as you can see, very nice. And as for accessories, it does come with a quick installation guide, the Asus web storage, a leaflet of stickers, the Wi-Fi antenna, which has a proprietary connector, which I'll show you later, the VIP card, the 5V 3-pin ARGB extension cables, nice thought. All these are the SATA cables. There are a total of 4, where you have 2 right angle and 2 straight, and on the other end, right, all are straight. 5 bags of rubber M.2 stand-offs, or should I say studs. Total of 2 additional M.2 clip. The quick connect for your front I/O connector, like your hard disk, your start, your reset button and such. And these are the M.2 clips. If you are not using the standard M.2 size, you have shorter, right? You can make use of this. I am not gonna lie, I am very impressed with this motherboard, even though it has a very hefty price tag, as in like expensive. Based on the fact this is a very premium board, it's very heavy. The construction is of 8-layer PCB with 2 ounce of copper trace, and the measurements is of 305 by 244. For the side VRM heatsink and the rear VRM heatsink. Now, this board does have a backplate, which I'll show you later. I will measure the measurements, as in like the thickness, from the motherboard PCB to the side VRM, same goes to the rear. Starting off with the side, this is of 40mm, and at the rear, this is at 45mm. The design of the board, my goodness, is so elegant. Starting off with the top rear, as you can see, there is this logo that says, or label that says Crosshair, and this mirror over here, right, this is where the ARGB effect is, and it does have a crest ROG, which I have to show you later. And right at the bottom, you have this whole plate. This is where it stands out. This plate is so fantastically crafted, well done, and it's very thick. There is a reason why, as this is the armor shield for the M.2. There are a total of 4 over here and 1 over here, which I'll talk about it later. Now, as mentioned, right, this is very thick, and the underside there are thermal pad, and there are thermal pad at the bottom too for the second and third M.2. And this have a back plate. Take a look. A very nice label Hero with the crest, and this whole back plate is not only adding rigidity to the PCB, it is also act as a heat absorber of your VRM. Take a look. There is a thermal pad, be it the rear VRM or the side VRM. Both have thermal pad. I'm not too sure if you can see. Anyway, as mentioned, this comes with a function, and it's very, very heavy. Now, as I mentioned, the board weighs very heavy, and this is how heavy it is. .45 kg. This is how heavy the board is. It is insanely heavy, not because of the construction of the PCB and such. It's the amount of cooling of what this board can cater for. As I've shown you, this is the M.2 shield. It's pretty thick. This is already quite heavy. Then followed by the back plate. Okay, and best part, very beefy first M.2 slot heatsink. See, this is how thick it is. It would definitely dissipate a lot of heat off from the M.2, which is Gen 5. And also the BRM. Take a look at the heatsink. My goodness. All this pin stack here and the pin stack, which will dissipate tons of heat. Looking at the side, see, this is whole block, which is very chunky. Same goes to the rear. See, this whole piece here, right, in fact, is metal, or should I say aluminium. And best part, there is a copper chamber, or should I say copper pipe, that links the side VRM heatsink to the rear, which I will show you how the thermal is like to run on a high-end processor. For the power pace of this board is 18 plus 2 plus 2. 18, which is for the processor, plus 2 for the SoC or the VRM voltage. For the 18 plus 2 is 110 ampere. Else for the last plus 2, which is meant for miscellaneous, is 80 ampere. Now, right at the center, this is the 1718 socket, whereby it caters for 9000, 8000, and 7000 series AMD processor. At the bottom here, there are a total of 4 DDR5 DIMM slots. It runs in dual channel, and it has a max capacity of 256 gig. And it has two profiles, which is Expo and AEMP. What does AEMP means? It's Asus Enhanced Memory Profile. If your RAMs do not have Expo profile, you can still run XMP profile, which is meant for Intel, but you will need to trigger AEMP. Now, having said this, right, the overclock profile of either Expo or AEMP, if you're running a 9000 series processor or a 7000 series processor, it can go max up to 8200 mega transfer. Else, if you're using 8000 series AMD processor, you can go up max to 8600 mega transfer. Now, with this said, right, do not assume that if you populate all the 4 slots with a max capacity of 256 gig, you can run with those speed, as in like 8200 mega transfer or 8600 mega transfer. It depends on the build of your RAMs. So take note on this. There are a total of 2 PCIe slots, which is slot 1 and slot 2. These are of Gen 5 and is controlled by the processor, and both are backward compatible. There are a total of 5 M.2, which you have 3 over here. These 3 are Gen 5 backward compatible and is controlled by the processor. Else, for the bottom M.2, there are 2 more, which is controlled by the chipset. Now, please refer to the top if you don't understand what I'm talking about, as I'm going to talk about the lane sharing. Now, if you were to populate only a graphic card at the top PCIe slot, okay, without this plugging in, this will run at full speed X16. If you populate another card over here together with your graphic card, can be a sound card, can be a capture card and such, this will speed. As in, like, the speed will be 8x and 8x, or should I say x8, x8. Now, for the M.2, if you are to populate only one graphic card over here and a Gen 5 M.2 or Gen 4, both will run at full speed. As in, like, the graphic card will be X16 and this will be X4. Now, if you were to populate a M.2 over here, the graphic card, and a M.2 over here, leaving this empty, the last PCIe slot will be disabled, and your graphic card will not run at X16. Instead, the speed will be X8. Now, if you are to populate a M.2 over here and leaving this empty with the top M.2 on and a graphic card, again, this graphic card will be X8, but instead of the last slot, PCIe slot, right, this will not be disabled. This will be running on X4. So it's X4, X4. Now, if you populate both together with the top and the graphic card, this will be disabled, and your graphic card will run at X8. Else, for the bottom, this 2 M.2, there's no lane sharing. It will just run at full speed, X4, X4. Now, I know some of you will be confused of what I've mentioned about the lane sharing and such. I'm just going to introduce to you this particular YouTuber, which I've conversed with him, and he do allow me to share his content. Now, this is Ronin Wilde. He's from Canada, and he did an excellent job on illustrating on lane sharing on the various board. As you can see, this is his page. Now I'm just going to leave his URL on my top right hand corner. You can just bookmark it. It's very useful. As you can see, he did compile all the X870E motherboard and to illustrate all the lane sharing, as you can see, and he explained. Now, as what I've done today, right, which is the X870E Hero, if you guys are confused of what I've mentioned, right, you can come to this website and to search. Take for example, let's say X8. Okay, not only on X870E Hero, right, can be on MSI board or such. But anyway, let's just show you this. Just an illustration. Okay, credits to Ronin. Wow, I'm just going to unmute the noise and just let you listen. He did a fantastic job.
Here's the Asus X870E ROG Hero. 4 lanes go to the USB 4 controller to 2 Type-C ports on the back. 4 Gen 5 lanes go to the main M.2. 16 lanes at Gen 5 go to a PCIe.
So these are just the short description as he illustrated as he talked, while he show you the diagram as in like, you know, showing you the path, how it's being shared. See, this is a perfect website. So it's good that you guys can actually bookmark his website if you're confused on any of the reviewers mentioning about the lane sharing, right? His YouTube is mainly all about the motherboard lane sharing. The locking mechanism of the PCIe slot and the M.2, starting off with the PCIe slot. Take note on the clipping mechanism, both are of the same. It has a spring loaded kind of mechanism. Now, in order to plug in, be it your graphic card, your sound card, etc., starting from the top, now both works the same. If you plug in your graphic card, this locking mechanism will just lock in place. And to release your graphic card or your sound card, you don't have to press this at all. All is needed is just to tuck the back of your card, which is like this. And when you hear this going down, hold both hands and pull it out. Same goes to the bottom section. Now, as for M.2 locking mechanism, starting off with the top. Now, this has a lever over here, okay, which you can push forward. Now, in order to lock your M.2, place your M.2 in and to press it down. To release, just push this towards the front and you will just release. And you can just take it out. And as for the bottom section, right, there are a total of 4 M.2. All these are having the same mechanism where you have this clip over here. See? So in order for you to place your M.2, right, just slot it in. Press the clip down a bit, not too much force, and put your M.2 in place. And release. And this will be fully locked. To release, just press this clip. And to release. In the event if you were to break this clip, do not worry. As I shown you earlier, right, there is this accessory where you have additional 2 clips. So if you were to break any of this, you can replace it with this. Now for M.2 that is shorter, okay, as you can see, some are not full size. If you want to make use of shorter M.2, right, you can, but you can only make use of those with a base plate, which is here, here, and here. See the base plate? Because you are provided with this, the M.2 locking mechanism. So you can place a shorter M.2, which I do not have, and to make use of this clip on it, and to lock in place. There are a total of 3 of this clip, by the way. Now, for the thermal pads, right, if you have not noticed, right, the 3 section over here, okay, these are with thermal pad at the base, whereby you have a base metal. Now, these are meant for dual chip M.2, whereby the chip is at the top, at the bottom. So, I would advise, be it whether single chip or double chip, right, make sure you remove off the protective cover, because the plastic is not a good absorber, be it whether it's a single chip or double chip. In fact, this bottom thermal pads, right, this 3 slot over here is meant for dual M.2 chip, so that the bottom chip will touch the thermal pad and to dissipate heat to the metal surface. Same goes to the top. Now, For the M.2 Armour shield, starting from the top, assuming that you have clipped your M.2, right? To put this whole piece in place, all is needed is just to plug this to the back. Okay, there's a slot, and to push it in until you hear a click, and this is the locking mechanism. To remove, press this, and to pull it out. Now for the bottom section part, okay, let me just zoom out. Sad to say that I wish that, you know, Asus have done something about this. This is actually a premium board. I wish that this is actually toolless, but you will need to unscrew the 4 screws over here. These are captive, by the way. Okay, so you won't lose the screws, and to remove the whole armor shield. Now to place it back, right, assuming that you have populated the M.2 on all the 4 slots, some of you might have a problem like aligning all the holes to the holes over here. I mean the screws on the holes over here. All is needed, align this, flush this flat on this plate. Okay, see, this is flush, this is flush. Then you can just anchor down, and it's already in place. You can just screw in. This board do come with a onboard audio, which is making use of the Realtek ALC 4082, and Asus have improved and enriched the sound quality, having this technology known as Supreme FX, and this does support 7.1 channel surround sound high definition. And for those of you using devices that has this technology known as the Dolby Atmos, you can plug the device to this board, and you will definitely hear a great difference in sound quality and such. Now, as for the connection point, starting off from the left, this is the audio header for your front I/O headphone and microphone jack. There are 2 4-pin PLN fan header, followed by a sensor pin. Now, you can purchase additional sensor probe, or should I say add-on sensor probe, where one end plugged to this, the other end where you have the probe. If you want to detect temperature on the components of your motherboard, right, you can just use that probe and to sense it, and that temperature reading will reflect on hardware info 64 or IDA 64. Next, you have 2 3-pin 5V ARGB connector, 2 USB 2.0 socket, and right above this socket there is this PCIe signal switch. And what this does, now as you know, whatever device they plug on the PCIe and the M.2, right, be it Gen 4, Gen 5, right, the processor will determine, or should I say the system will determine for you whether is it Gen 4, Gen 5 or Gen 3. If you know that all your devices, be your GPU, your M.2 and such, is running on Gen 4, you can toggle this switch. So you do switch this to the center, right, there will be a LED lit up telling the system that, hey, bypass all the verification and, you know, clarification and such. I'm telling you that I'm using Gen 4 devices, so it will be a faster, there's no delay and such, it will just boot the system itself. If you're using Gen 3, just switch to the last section. Again, there will be LED over here. But at all times, right, if you're making use of Gen 5, Gen 4, Gen 3 and such, right, leave it as auto. In fact, it's advisable to leave it as auto. Now, this board is built very unique, okay, in a way that you can have 2 3.2 front I/O connectors for your Type A port, which is your USB Type A. As you know that one connection point, right, it gives you 2 USB Type A. There are 2 over here. If you have 2 connectors, you can support up to 4 USB Type A port. And for this, is running on Gen 1, which is having a transfer rate of 5 gig. Another unique of this board, there are total of 2 Type C port. Again, for your front I/O Type C socket. Now, these 2 are of Gen 2 times 2, having a transfer rate of 20 gig. Now, I know that majority of the case out there, right, they only have 1 connection point to your Type C. If you have 2, right, then connect to both. If you only have 1 connection point, I would advise you to connect to the center port rather than this port. Reason being, right, I'll explain to you later. Next, you have the CMOS battery right at the top. This, I wouldn't know what this is. I'll just skip. Now, if you are into extreme overclocking, like LM2 overclocking, where you need higher V-core voltage, probably 1.8, 2 and 2.2 and such, you can release the cap of this board, which is capped to 1.35. By setting this switch, or should I say this plug, right, to the front, right, you are releasing the cap at 1.35, and you can set in your UEFI to a higher V-core. But at all times, if you are not doing extreme overclocking, I wouldn't want you to hurt your processor and such. Leave this as it is. Do not touch this. Next, you have this front I/O header, whereby it's meant for your power switch, your reset switch, your power LED, and your hard disk LED. Now, moving to the front, this I already mentioned, so I'll just skip. Now, this is known as the SIM SAS connector, which is meant for M.2, external M.2, where you have this cable to connect to here. Okay, and it can run at Gen 4 speed. Okay, with this socket, it's a special kind of plug for you to run M.2 at a high speed. Next, you have 4 SATA connector, which are right angle. Now, do take note, if you were to populate any hard disk 2.5 inch or the 3.5 inch hard disk, right, to this 4 SATA port, you don't have to worry about lane sharing. It will operate at full speed, and you will not affect when you connect to the M.2s and such. Next, you have a 4-pin PWM fan header again. Now, for this center Type-C port, which I mentioned to you, if you have one connection point at the front, right, connect to this. Reason being, right, this is not only a data transfer port, but if you were to connect a PCIe 8-pin connector over here, from the power supply to here, to supply power, this will become a charging port. Whereby if you have devices of Type-C, right, let's say your laptop or your smartphone, you can connect to that, and it has fast charging capability. And not only that, the rating will be at 60 watt. It's easy to charge your laptop or your MacBook, but make sure that if you want fast charging and charging your laptop and MacBook, right, connect the 8-pin PCIe connector to supply the power. So make sure to do that. Next, you have 24-pin connector, where you connect from your power supply to here to supply power to the rest of the component. Next, you have a 4-pin PWM fan header again. Now, this is a retry key. If you are doing overclocking, right, this switch is very useful. It will retain the configuration. Let's say you get stuck, you can just press retry. You just keep on retrying until there is a successful rate. Now, besides this, right, this board is good if you can, if you want to test this board outside the case, right, there are switches over here where you have the start key and the flex key. Now, this flex key is programmable, which I'll show you later. It can be reset, safe mode, or to switch off the ARGB effect. Next, another 3-pin 5V ARGB connector. Now, this debug LED, which is digital, it will show you the digital numbers where you can refer the code on your instruction menu. You tell you the fault, like processor fault, RAM fault, or such. A very useful indication. Not only this, right at the bottom, these are the debug LED, which are the standard motherboard, which is not of high end. So it will indicate your CPU, your VRAM, your BGA, and even the boot and such. Now, moving from the top, you have a total of 4-pin PWM fan connector, whereby the first one, this is chassis. Next, you have the AIO connector, followed by the CPU underscore fan and the CPU underscore op. Now, if you're having air cooler, right, those fans please plug to your CPU underscore fan and not CPU underscore op, because this does not have its individual PWM control when you do it, when you set in UEFI. So make sure you connect to the CPU underscore fan so that you can control the PWM. In the event if you are having a liquid AIO, for the block pump connector, right, connect to the AIO. Okay, this is specifically for your AIO pump. Then for the radiator, plug it to CPU_fan so that you can have total control of the PWM. Now, in the event if you are using push-pull configuration on a liquid AIO, one set of fan, let's say the push, you can plug to CPU_fan, and for the pull, you can plug to CPU_op. As CPU_op will take instruction of what you have set the PWM curve, right, on CPU_fan. So when you plug, one set of each to the CPU fan and the CPU op, all the 6 fans, right, will run at a synchronized PWM speed. Last but not least, there are 2 8-pin EPS connector. This is the rear I/O where you have the clear CMOS button, the BIOS flashback button. Yes, you can flash to the latest BIOS on your motherboard without having to plug the processor or the RAMs. But in order to use this button, you will need to plug your firmware, which is contained in a thumb drive, to plug to this port which says BIOS, or the highlighted white line. Now, in order to make use of the BIOS flashback button, please follow the instruction on your manual, and it will guide you through the step-by-step of what to do as to make use of the BIOS flashback. Now, next you have the HDMI port, where this is version 2.1 and has a projection of 4K 60Hz, and this is making use of the integrated graphic on your processor. There are a total of 6 USB Type A port, and these are not version 2.0. In fact, all these are version 3.2, and it's of generation 2, where all has a transfer rate of 10 gig. And right at the bottom, you have 4 Type C port, whereby the first 2, these are USB 4 and has a transfer rate of 40 gig. Not only this also acts as a display port for both of this port. That means to say, if you have a portable monitor that has a Type C connector, you can just connect to either of this. Or you have 2 portable monitor with Type C connection, right, you can connect to both, and you will both project, inclusive of your discrete graphic card, so there will be a total of 3 monitors. Now, for this are version 1.4a display port and has a projection of 4K 60Hz. Now, coming to this, please do not misunderstood, these are display port. These are not. These are only data transfer port, which is Type C and has a max transfer rate of 10 gig. Right above, you have 2 RJ45 socket, which is good. One is 5 gig transfer rate, the other one is 2.5 gig transfer rate. And you can plug one to your internet, the other to your NAS. Now, followed by this Wi-Fi socket, where this is a true Wi-Fi 7. Why do I say this? They are making use of MediaTek 7927 that has a signal bandwidth of 320 MHz instead of the lower tier motherboard, right, where they only supply a MediaTek 7925 that is only 160 MHz. Else, this is 320 MHz, which I will show you. Which I will show you later when I test the network benchmark. Now, besides this, right, this is also Bluetooth enabled, as in version 5.4, you can make use of the Bluetooth function too. And over at this side, this is where the audio is, where you have the microphone in, line out, and the SPIF out. Now, as mentioned to you, the accessories come with the antenna. Now, this is the antenna end, which is proprietary. You don't have to screw the antenna on this socket over here. You can just plug in. See? It's pretty straightforward. And if you do not want it, you can just pull it out. See, it's that simple. Now, I forgot something regarding about the Wi-Fi 7, right? Now, this is making use of MediaTek 7927, which is a true Wi-Fi. Now, there is another version which they make use of another adapter, which is the Qualcomm 865. That is also a true Wi-Fi adapter, which is also making use of 320 MHz. So it depends on what version you have purchased about this board. It's either you get a MediaTek or you get a Qualcomm adapter. This section I'll be showing you the 3 network component. As you can see, this is the Crosshair X870E Hero. Now let me just pull the device manager to show you all the adapters. As you can see here, there are 3. The first one is the Intel 2.5 gig NIC, and this is the MediaTek Wi-Fi 7, and this Wi-Fi 7 is making use of MediaTek 7927, which is a 320 MHz channel bandwidth, which is of a true Wi-Fi 7. Now next will be the Realtek 5 gig RJ45, which is similar to the 2.5 gig NIC. So this two, the top and the bottom, are the physical LAN connection, except for this, which is the Wi-Fi 7. Now to show you the connection, as some of you might have experienced, some of the speculation out there, right, stating that some of this Wi-Fi card, or should I say the network adapter, is not that strong and it causes intermittence and such. Let's begin with the wireless, which is the MediaTek 7927. So I'm just going to enable this and I'll show you the bandwidth. Now having a 320 MHz channel bandwidth, right, now this is local. If I have to run, right, it will hit above 3 gig. As you can see over here, right, see, it's around 3.8 gig, 3.9 gig, almost nearing 4 gig of download speed. And for upload, probably I would say lesser, but it still hovers around 3 gig and above. See? And there are no intermittence and such. Now this is only based on local. If I were to change this, okay, let me just do another test just to show you that it's stable. So this is the second run, same server, which is locally here in Singapore. See, it doesn't break. It's always at this speed, nearing about 4 gig. Same goes to the upload, which is about 3.8 to 4 gig. Now based on fact, sometimes it's too fast, right? The graph wouldn't pick up. The meter wouldn't pick up. As you can see, the upload speed. Now I'm just going to push further away. Now do note, this is a wireless connection, right? Okay, and this location here is 200 miles away from Singapore. It should hover around 3 gig and above again without failure. See? This is the download speed. And as for the upload speed, it should be around the same. See, it's 3.2, 3.3 gig and above. It doesn't go below 3 gig. So this tells me that this is actually quite consistent on this MediaTek. And I have been using this, this COM, or should I say this board, on an open bench for a couple of weeks. And there are no signs of degradation on the or intermittence on the network connection. Let me just disable this. Next, I will be testing on the 2.5 gig Intel RJ45 socket. Okay, again, it will take some time. Okay, verified. Still based in Singapore. For the first run, 2.5, so it's reaching around 2.3, 2.4, which is okay. This is as expected from a 2.5 gig port. So you might be wondering, hey Q, I should be using Wi-Fi instead of the 2.5. That's correct. In fact, the 2.5, that's the reason why you have a Wi-Fi 7 through 320 MHz channel bandwidth. Now I'm just going to run again so that it does not show any instability and such. So as you can see, right, it's still hovering 2.3 gig for a 2.5 gig port. Same goes to the upload. And again, after this, right, I'm showing away from Singapore server, which I will choose this probably. No, DG Malaysia. Okay, this is, let's see, 197 miles. See, it's around there, 2.3, 2.2, 2.3 and such. You will not go above 2.5 because this port here, the Intel 2.5 gig, in fact, it's hovering around this, which is okay. This is done. I'm just going to run again. Oh, probably not run again. I would to, because some of you might say that, hey, how come I didn't test the other one, which is this. Now, this server, I'm not too sure if it's okay. It says 5 gig over here. Most likely you will get the 2.2 or 2.3 gig. See, it doesn't. This is based on the server and it's not based on the port. So that's the reason why some of this, right, some of the servers does not provide so much bandwidth, and you can see the ping rate is pretty high. So this is actually not a good server to test on. Now, if I were to test on another, okay, let's say I pull to the last one. Okay, Maxis, which is 200 miles away. This will definitely be 2.2, 2.3 gig. That's for sure. Look at the ping rate, it's very good. See? So some of you might experience intermittence and such, right? It might not be the port itself. It could be the server that you're trying to connect to, especially when you're in US and such, because your country is very scarce as compared to here in Singapore, right? We are very, we are just a dot on the atlas. All our connection is very fast. Alright, with this said, let me just test the last one, which is the Realtek 5 gig port. Okay, let me just enable this. And I'm reading a lot about Reddit regarding about this wireless, saying that, giving intermittence and such, but in my case, no, it works perfectly fine. Okay, now I'm going to test on the 5 gig port, which is this, still in Singapore. It should be hovering around 4.7, 4.8. See? It shows. It reaches whatever is catered for, and it's no intermittence at all. Okay, let me just run again. So as mentioned, right, the motherboard that supply all this Realtek, MediaTek, or even Intel NIC, right? Yeah, sometimes it's due to the firmware and such, or the drivers, but right now all are rectified. Since this X870 series, right, has been released for a couple of months ago, so there are improvements being done. That's why I face no issue on connection. See, it's at 4.7 download and upload. Let me just change to another location. Okay, let's say I put to this, which is 197 miles away. Once you see the ping rate is good, right, the download and upload will be very good. So this 197 miles away from Singapore, and I'm actually reaching from the Singapore terminal to the I should say this is Malaysia. See, 4.7. The connection of all the network adapters are fantastic. There are no intermittence, no nothing. I've set up the system on my open bench, and right now to show you the RAM training cycle. Now, if you are migrating from an Intel platform to a AM5 platform, or AM4 to an AM5 platform, this is expected. For the very first time, I repeat, for the very first time when you boot into UEFI, it will take some time for it to load. During this period of time, right, what it does is that the system will verify the RAMs, pull the profile and such. And before you do any boot up, make sure you do a BIOS flashback, check on your instruction menu how you do it, and flash it to the latest BIOS. If you are not using 9000F processor, okay, make sure you do not upgrade the Agisa to version 1.2.3F. Instead, if you are using just the 9000 series or the 9000X3D series, right, update the Agisa to version 1.2.3e. Now, as you can see on my left, there is this stopwatch over here. The moment when I press start, I will click on the stopwatch just to show you how long it takes for the RAM to train and to cycle. Here we go. During this period of time, right, when it shows 15, this is perfectly alright, whereby it verifies that your board has taken in the RAMs, and you'll take some time to verify. Do not press reset, do not switch it down, do not clear CMOS, just let it run. It will take some time for it to cycle. Once it's done, right, you will have a white light and you will boot into UEFI. See? It takes about 31 seconds or so. Right now, I'm just going to take you to UEFI. Here we go. Now, as mentioned to you, for the very first time when you boot up, right, it will take a slightly longer time. But once it's been verified, when you shut it down or even reset on Windows itself, right, it will be very fast. I will illustrate again. Let me just reset the stopwatch and to shut this down. Assuming it's been verified and you have made use of the machine and it's being shut down. So during cold boot, right, it will be very fast. So this is how it is. I'm just going to press the stopwatch together with the start button. Here we go. So the first time around, it takes 30 seconds to read and to verify. Subsequently, when you boot up, right, it will take a much lesser time. See? It takes only a few seconds and the white light is up. And probably it will take about 19 to 20 seconds to load into UEFI. See? About 22 seconds. So it's much faster. When you have the system booted up, everything running, right, first thing you will notice that this digital debug LED, right, will have some numbers. Now, these are not error codes. In fact, this is the temperature of your processor. So this is actually at idle. And also another neat feature is that whereby be it whether your system is up and running or maybe it's at standby mode, right, this ARGB effect, you can turn it off. As I mentioned to you, there's a FlexKey. So by pressing this FlexKey, right, which I programmed to turn off the ARGB, take a look. See, this is off. So when you press it back again, right, it's going to be back on. In order for you to program the FlexKey, you will need to go to UEFI, under Advanced Mode, select Tools, the submenu, and select FlexKey. And from here, you can program like reset, aura on and off, direct key, or safe boot. I've set it to aura on and off. So as and when, if I want to turn off the ARGB on the rear I/O, right, I'll just press the FlexKey. Now, another neat feature whereby you don't have to use the Armour crate to control the ARGB. Let me just show you. As you can see, this is window. So you just do a right click, click on personalize, and scroll down, you will see this dynamic lightings. When you click on this, right, you can turn this on. So when I turn it on, right, take a look at the ARGB. See? And you can change accordingly. So this right now is static. See, I can change the color. A very nice function. Or you can change other patterns like probably like rainbow and such. Not going to show you everything, but this is how it's been done. You can do this. Now, in the event, if let's say you can't reach out to the FlexKey to turn this off, you can always come to this Windows platform, right, as in like the dynamic lightings. You can just pull down the brightness. Sorry, I pulled the wrong one. This one. See, it will just off. In order to make use of the Windows dynamic lightings, you will need to set in UEFI again. Now, under Advanced Mode, click on Advanced, scroll down, and select Onboard Device Configuration. From here, as you can see, if this is above, right, just scroll down and select Windows Dynamic and make sure this is enabled. This board is equipped with safety features. Once you have done this in your case or set it up on an open bench, right, when you turn on the PSU, see what will happen. There are indication of LEDs telling you that something is not right. Whereas over here, right, this is meant for your 8-pin PCIe connector. You will need to connect this in order for you to have the Type-C fast charge. So when you plug this in, right, it will be gone. Let me just illustrate to you. Take some time to plug it in. See? And this is the indication in yellow stating that you have not seated your RAMs correctly. So if I set it correctly, see, it will be gone. Same goes to the 8-pin EPS connector. So once you have plugged all this in, right, all the notification indication will be gone. See? Done. Nice touch. Now I'm just going to show you the thermal results on how well this motherboard can handle on a 9950X. And do take note that my room temperature is around 29 degrees Celsius to 30 degrees Celsius, happening that right now is actually a rainy day. Now to illustrate to you how well this motherboard can cater for high-end components, as you can see over here, you can pause and have a look at the specs. Now do note that my room temperature is at 30 to 31 degrees Celsius as I'm in a hot and humid country. So these are the components. I'll be using a 9950X processor from AMD, and of course the motherboard itself. And for the M.2, I'll be using a Gen 5 M.2 coming from Bywin, known as the Black Opal X870E 2TB. And as for the pair of RAMs, I'll be using again from Bywin, the Black Opal HX100 DDR5. And these are the specs. As you can see, the cache latency is pretty tight, followed by the bus speed, and this is the voltages. Now, speaking about the voltages itself, right, on UEFI, I have set down my SoC voltage, which is actually the VDD_CR at 1.16 volt. And for the precision boost overdrive limits, these are the limits that I've set. Reason for me to set this, right, I normally will set it to run at 5 gig and not above that, based on the fact that this processor, the base clock is at 4.7, so I wouldn't want to stretch all the way to 5.3 or 5.4. If you guys want to do that, you can do that. So that's the reason why I've kept this to PPT at 210 watt, TDC at 180 ampere, and EDC at 190 ampere. Just nice to run slightly above 5 gig. Now for the curve optimizer, I'll be setting the first tag, which is CCD 0 at -20, and for CCD 1 at -15. As for curve shaper, these are the settings for the mid frequency, high frequency, and max frequency. As you can see, each frequency, right, have 3 temperature. So starting off with the mid frequency, all this temperature settings, right, will be at magnitude -15, followed by the high frequency -10, and the max frequency at -5. Now, for the Cinebench, right, I've taken off because I've been running this processor itself. So having a smooth run and such, as you can see, 54 minutes and so. I've done the 30 minutes stress test both on Cinebench R23 running along with Firmark. And these are the stats that you will see later. So to witness that, things to take note are the processor, as in like what's the temperature and running at what speed. Now for the clock speed, right, here will be slightly different because it's taking average of all the 16 core. Okay, I should have slightly adjust this. As you can see, 0 to 15, these are the 16 cores. So this clock speed, right, or should I say the clock frequency, right, is taking the average of all the 16 core. You should be looking at the peak speed, and most of the time it's running at how much gigahertz. Now besides this, right, take a look at the temperature on the motherboard itself, the VRM, the DDR5, the M.2, and of course the chipset. As mentioned to you, I've rerun the Cinebench for 30 minutes, stressing on not only the processor, and why am I running Firmark based on the fact that I'm not using any discrete graphic card. So it runs on the integrated graphic on the processor along with the load on the processor itself. So this will stress much more on your CPU. That will, you know, show me what is being pushed and such on the motherboard itself. So all these are the temperature. Now over here you will see a graph whereby I will show you that how consistent it is, as in like how well this motherboard is pushing the processor and such. If it's a flat run, right, it will be great. If it's jagged, then either the motherboard is trying to struggle or is trying to push more frequency up. Now with this here, I'm just going to run the 10 minutes run. Oh, as mentioned to you, why do I have the Cinebench score over here? 52k 720 points is taken from the 30 minutes run. So hopefully that after the 10 minutes run, which you're going to witness, right, it's going to be the same, same results. So here we go. I'm just going to run 10 minutes again. And for the last 2 minutes or 3 minutes or so, right, I will talk about the results. Last 1 minute or so. In fact, before showing you the results, take a look at the graph over here. It does show consistency, and in fact the bumps that you see, right, is pushing. This motherboard is pulling to push the processor, which is actually a good sign. So this tells how mature this motherboard is. And looking at the temperature, right, as you can see, it's consistent, 76 to 78 degrees Celsius. It doesn't go above 80 degrees Celsius on the processor. Where if I were to place this inside a case, right, if I were to add in 5 degrees, it will be around 83 to 84 degrees Celsius, which is a very healthy sign. And looking at the stand that I've set the SoC, which I mentioned to you, 1.6, it doesn't go above 1.7, which is also a good sign. It's very stable. And the rest of the fact, like the motherboard temperature and such, take a look. It doesn't even go 50 degrees Celsius on the motherboard itself, the overall. And the VRM heatsink area, right, is hovering around 50 degrees Celsius and nothing more. And same goes to the RAMs, whereby it doesn't even reach 45 degrees Celsius. Same goes to the M.2, which this is actually a Gen 5. By right, I should be seeing around 55 degrees or 56 degrees Celsius, but surprisingly, it's sustaining. The M.2 shield, right, the thickness of it, it does absorb lots of heat from the Gen 5 M.2, and this is the result, which is very good. Now looking at other stand like the chipset, right, yep, it's a bit higher, whereby 55 degrees and such, based on the fact that they are operating the lanes. And this is also a healthy sign, whereby it doesn't go 60. Even if I were to put in the case as mentioned, right, if I were to add up all the thermals, right, at 5 degrees more, right, it will not, go above 63. Now on the consistent stand, right, the peak, if you to slightly rewind this, right, is at 5.06 gigahertz or 5.07 gigahertz, which is healthy too. I am utterly impressed with this board, whereby it does cater what it's supposed to do. As in, like, the rest of the component, right, one thing about motherboard is that don't only look at the CPU temperature, you have to look at the overall, which I've shown you earlier. All these are hovering very fine, like the motherboard, the BRM heatsink, the or should I say the BRM itself, or the MOSFET, the RAMs itself, the Gen 5 drive, especially the Gen 5 drive, very impressive. With the thickness of that M.2 shield, right, it does not go above 55 degrees Celsius. In fact, it's below 50 degrees Celsius, which is fantastic. Having such an honor to review this premium board, which is very pricey. Now, I was very skeptic about the price point, and if you to ask me, is it worth every single penny to purchase this board? Well, if you are into aesthetic and if you want stability and of good quality, right, this board is the way to go. And why do I say this? Overall, it's a solid build. As I've shown you the quality, and the weight is 2.45 kg, this heavy. And the weight is not for show. In fact, due to the fact that there are tons of metal pieces, chunky metal pieces and plate, inclusive of the black plate, right, this provide cooling solution through the whole motherboard. As I show you, right, for the M.2, especially on the Gen 5 M.2, it doesn't go above 50 degrees Celsius. In fact, it's hovering at 49 degrees Celsius during at load. And same goes to the BRM. It doesn't exceed 50 degrees Celsius, which is fantastic. And on top of it, the base plate or the back plate is cooling the BRM too. And not only this, the whole structure where you have all the heavy chunky metal pieces, right, inclusive of the back plate, it forms the rigidity of the board. It doesn't flex, which is fantastic. Now another good point is that this board comes with good feature set and function. First of all, the safety features, whereby if you forget to plug your 8-pin EPS or your 8 PCIe connector, or even not sitting the RAM properly, right, there are LED indication, which is good. Also, another set that you can place this board outside the case and to test the board, where you have all these function buttons like the start and the flex key. Now for the flex key, as I mentioned, right, it's fantastic. You can program it. You can program it either to be a reset switch or to turn off the ARGB instantly. And right beside it, there is a retry. So if you are overclocking certain things and you want to retain the configuration without clearing CMOS and such, right, you can make use of this retry key, which is also another bonus. Now, there are tons of connectivity on this board. Starting off with the front I/O is provided with two 3.0, which is for your Type A. So total, you can have 4 USB Type A port at the front if you have 2 connectors. And it also forms the rigidity again on this straight plug, where you can see the metal plate, so that you will not accidentally rip off the whole socket. Nicely done. And also inclusive of 2 Type C port over here and here. And both of these are transferring at a high speed, which is 20 gig. And best part is this is a charging port, which allows fast charging and inclusive of charging your laptop and your notebook, which has 60 watt power delivery. If you were to plug the 8-pin PCIe supply over here, and this will be a charging port. Well done. Not only this, at the rear, where you can see all the USB Type A, right, all these are not USB 2.0. In fact, all these are USB 3.2 or 3.2, which has a transfer rate of 10 gig. And best part, you have total of 4 Type C port. Okay, additional. Since you have 2 over here, you have the front I/O, and over here you have 4, and 2 of these are USB 4, and it has a transfer rate of 40 gig, and it also acts as a display port. And all this does not have lane sharing, which is fantastic. Now besides this, right, the ARG effect, as I've shown you, you don't even need to install Armour Crate. You can just make use of Windows, the function called dynamic lightings, to control the ARGB effect, or even to turn it off. That's the best part. Now, tons of M.2 storage. As you can see, there are a total of 5 with the SATA, which is 4. So all this, right, you can populate a lot of M.2. The only thing that I wish is that I hope that if they would to be able to populate all the M.2s, right, though this is disabled, but at least retain this to be full speed at X16 instead of, you know, splitting the lanes with, splitting the speed with the M.2, which is a waste, whereby this is on X8. This is only the minor flaw that I thought of. Now, besides this, right, it has a very good network adapter and 2 network RJ45 port. One is 5 gig, one is 2.5 gig. Where, as I mentioned, right, one for your internet, one to connect to your NAS. And the Wi-Fi 7, right, it's truly very strong. As I mentioned to you, this is a true Wi-Fi 7 that has a 320 MHz bandwidth signal. Well done. On top of which, for convenience, you can do your CMOS reset over here. The locking mechanism is fantastic, be it the PCIe or the M.2. Let me just show you. Now, for the PCIe slot, if you were to have a GPU or an additional add-on card like the capture card and such, okay, let me just put this nicely. For you to plug it in, you just plug it in straight. And the PCIe slot itself have a reinforced metal casting, so to prevent breaks and such, which is good. So when you plug it in, right, it will be firmly clipped, and this will lock in place. Okay, the locking mechanism of the top and the bottom PCIe slot is of the same. And to release it, you don't have to press this lever. All is needed, for example, your graphic card, right, just leave it at the back slightly till you hear this click downwards. Then you can hold on both areas on the graphic card with your hands and to pull it out. Same goes to the bottom section. As for the M.2, the locking mechanism is great, all toolless, which you can see this is the lever over here, and these are the clips to clip on and to hold your M.2. Now, the only thing that I dislike about the locking mechanism is the M.2 Armour shield. At the top section, not a problem, this is toolless, you can just plug and play. See, it's quite easy. But for the bottom section, right, this plate here, you will need to align the screws to the holes and to make use of screwdriver to screw it. Now, some of you might, might question that, hey Q, with this price point, right, shouldn't this be toolless? Well, it is. There is a reason why Asus have done in screwing method. Reason being, right, if you have toolless, right, the pressure might not be good. So they are designed in a way that to have 4-point screw to have the even pressure to catch onto all your M.2s to give better solution, as in like the cooling solution. So this is the reason why they have designed it this way. Now another thing is that, okay, if you look at this, right, see, there are fingerprints. I hope that Asus will provide, microfiber cloth for us to clean this mirror finish, because this is, fingerprint magnetic. And besides this, right, the aesthetic of the whole board, as mentioned to you, is very elegant. I find that if you are purchasing this board, right, do yourself a favor, get cases whereby you can mount your GPU not on the board itself, but vertically at the side or vertically at the front. Vertically at the side, which is making use of the Lianli O11D Evo XL. That will allow you to mount your graphic card at the side, or to have the Lianli Sub-Zero. You can mount your graphic card at the front so that you can showcase the whole body of your motherboard. If not, it's going to be wasted, whereby if you are going to plug the graphic card horizontally, right, when you place your case at the side, this will be covered. Or if you place it vertically this way, your graphic card, this will be covered. So I feel it's a waste if you purchase this board and not to showcase the elegance, the beauty of the whole motherboard. So this is what I feel. Now, who should have this board? Is it for gamers? Is it for content creators? Well, it is for both. First of all, if you want to game with a good performance motherboard and does all the bells and whistles, as in like to perform and to do overclocking and to squeeze every ounce of FPS right in your games, this is the board for you. Reason being, the sufficient power phase, fantastic. Plus, the 18 plus 2, the 18 which is for the processor, the plus 2 for your SoC voltage, right, is 110 ampere, and the miscellaneous is at 80 amp choke. This is a very powerful board. You can do extreme overclocking with this. Alright, and besides this, right, also aesthetically pleasing. If you are doing gaming, there are ARGB effects and such. There are this nice design, so you can show off and showcase you are doing LAN parties or such, if you do so, right, or to display on live stream and such. Now, for content creator, this board is also catered for you. Tons of M.2 storage. Okay, if you find that it's not enough, you can plug 4 more SATA. As mentioned to you, there are no lane sharing on all the storage, which is good. If you find that it's not enough and you need to transfer out big files, okay, you can either use the front type C port, which is 20 gig transfer rate, or you can make use of the rear port, also type C, but these are of 40 gig. This allows you to transfer out to any devices or enclosure that has 40 gig or more, 30 gig or more transfer rate. Okay, so that will save time. And best part is that if you are using additional monitors, right, you just want to see certain timeline or certain info while you're doing the video editing, right, you can plug to this DP port if you have a portable monitor that makes use of type C connection. Well done. And also another point is that if you also have a choice to choose to transfer your data through the network, as this is catered not only for your internet, but it does have an additional port for you to plug to your NAS. So this is the convenience. With this said, I'd like to thank Asus Singapore to have loaned me this unit and to present it to you guys. And if you guys are new to my channel, welcome to my channel. If you like my content, do remember to subscribe and to click on the notification bell button. But please do not go away. At the end of this, right, there will be configuration on the UEFI showing you the easy mode and the advanced mode. Alright, with this say, take care, goodbye, see ya. This is how the UEFI interface or the BIOS interface look like, whereby you have two modes. One which is the easy mode, and second which is the advanced mode. Now starting off with the easy mode, here where you have the time, when you click on it, you can set the time and date. Then over here you can set the languages. Right now it's in English. You can set it to Chinese if you want to. See, all this will be in Chinese. Let me just set this back to English. Now for AI overclocking, or should I say press the function button F11. This is all the description of what Asus AI overclocking is all about. Make sure you read over it, and once you have done and you fully understand what's going on, you can enable it. And this function is similar to over here the easy tuning, that you can click over here and say AI optimization, or should I say AI optimize, which is similar to this. Alright, now next will be the search. In the event if you know that there's a function in UEFI and you wouldn't want to scroll and click and such, you can directly click on the search or press F9 and to type in what are the functions that you want to set. For example, let's say I want to do the PVO limit. See, it will appear. Or if you want to do the curve optimizer, right, you can just do this. See, it will show you all the curve optimizer and such. Next will be the Aura. Now for Aura, let me just click here. You can see all this mode over here. I'm not going to go through everything, but you can have a look at the pause this and have a look at the legend over here and what it does when you enable or disable. Next will be the resizable bar. Now this is by default on. Just leave it on. This is meant for your discrete graphic card. Now over at the bottom over here, right, on my left, this is where it shows you the motherboard, the processor that you're using, the base speed that you will be using, and of course the memory capacity. And at the center you'll be seeing the CPU temperature, the motherboard temperature, and the V-core current, which is drawing in order to run the processor. And this I will skip. As I mentioned to you, the easy tuning is the AI overclocking. Now over at this section where you can see the DRAM status, which are the RAM slot that you have populated. Here I'm using a 48 gig kit, which is a dual RAM stick. That's why you can see that A2 and B2 is occupied with the RAMs. And right at the bottom you can enable the Expo profile, or if you have XMP profile, which is known as the AMEP profile, you can set it over here. It's just one click. Then it will show you the storage, where I'm using one stick of BiWin, the M.2, which is generation 5, which is populated over here. Now this is my USB stick, which I'll explain to you why I'm plugging and to show you. Based on the fact that on my right you can see this boot party, right, you can switch as in like, let's say the M.2 which you see over here, right, this is my Windows OS. Assuming that this USB stick is the Linux OS. If you want to boot to Linux, just press on this, hold on it, and drag up. So when you save this and you boot, right, it will detect that you want to boot up from your USB stick, or should I say the Linux OS. If you want it back, you have to come back to this UEFI, switch this up, and you will boot into Windows. Right at the bottom you have this fan profile. These are all the RPMs of the fans that you populated your fans, or should I say plug to the fan headers of your motherboard. Right now I only have my radiator fans, which is here. Now based on the fact that I'm using an Arctic Liquid Freezer 2 and the pump does not have a reading, so it's perfectly alright. If it has a pump reading, right, it will show you on the AIO pump. Now to tune the fans itself, you can go to the Q fan control, select the header that you have connected the fan to, and you can do the profiles over here. As you can see, the curve, where you can standard, silent, turbo, full, or you can custom. Having it at custom, right, you can set over here. Let's say you want temperature at 20, right, you can run put up, you can just tune up to your choice. Okay, let's say I put it this way. Just showing you that you can do your own settings over here. See, just an illustration. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to set it to turbo. Then over here, if you were to do manual, right, you can set this to PWM and such, which I've already done. It's either auto detect, DC mode, or PWM mode. Now most of the time for 4-pin fan connectors, right, I'll be using PWM mode. Then to detect the temperature, to ramp up your fans, right, I select to CPU, or you can choose as, you know, CPU package and such. Now these are the level of reaction where your fans will step up or step down. Then for the lowest limit, I've set it to 6,000. If you find it too noisy, you can set it to 2,000. This is run during at idle speed. And make sure that your fan is able to run at 200 RPM, okay, for the lowest. But most of the time, I'll just set it 600. And over here, these are the temperature of the CPU, the motherboard, the chipset. It does have a T sensor on this board, so if you plug to that, right, you will sense the temperature and such. Things like the RAMs and such, you will see. You can scroll down and have a look. See, it will show you all the temperature. Now on the lower right, you can see the Q dashboard. When you click on insert, right, you will see that what are the things being populated on your motherboard itself, as in like plug in. See the memory. If I click on memory, it will show you that memory. Okay, now one thing bad about this Q dash, right, if I press escape, right, it doesn't go back to the Q dashboard. I will have to either click on this or press on insert to show you the Q dash. So whatever you have plugged in, right, for example your fan, right, when you click on this, see, it will take you to the dashboard of the fan configuration and such. So a very nifty tool to use. Now back to the lower right, where you have default. Imagine that you have set all the settings and you want it to be default. You can just press F5 or click on this. Save and exit is self-explained. Then next will be the advanced mode. As this is the easy mode, let me just take you to the advanced mode. Either you press F7 or advanced mode over here. So this is how the advanced mode look like. I will start off with the top. This is similar to the easy mode, as you can see, but the only difference is that you add in two more shortcuts, which is the favorites and the Q fan. Now for my favorite, I'll talk about it in a short while. Starting off with the Q fan, this is where you can do the settings for your fan configuration, like your radiator fans and case fans and such. Now besides this, right, the rest are the same, just like the easy mode. Going down, right, these are all the subcategories where you can go into it and to tune into details. Now on main, right, it will show you the system info, the RAMs that you populated, your processor, and what BIOS version you are using and such. So these are all the details. Now coming to the favorite, which I mentioned to you at the top, where you have this F3. Now something about favorites, right, whatever you have, do a marking on my favorites, it will show on my favorites over here, this section. Now what do I mean? Now just gonna press on F3. As you can see here, right, assuming that you wanted something on advanced mode, which is the AMD CBS, if you want this function. Now on the my favorite section, right, as you scroll down, right, there isn't any, see, until here till the end, there isn't any favorite that is setting on the CBS, AMD CBS. So if I were to do on F3, heading to this dashboard, just on advanced, right, I select on this and I press on the plus button. As you can see, when I press on the plus button, right, it will appear over here. If you do not want this, you can just delete it. Okay, let me just show you again. There's none over here. If I were to click this and to press this, the plus button, or the physical keyboard plus button, right, it will show over here. So when you head back, okay, let me just exit this, head back to the my favorite, right, right now when you scroll down, you will see that there is a AMD CBS. If you do not want this, Go back to the my favorite dashboard, which is here. Highlight on this and click on the X over here. So when you exit, right, back to the my favorites section, see, it's gone. So this is actually how you do your favorites. This is good when you feeder with lots of when you feeder settings quite often, you can bookmark it and to place it on this my favorite section. Now for extreme twinkle, just going to briefly go through with you. You can set the expo profile, as you can see over here. See, and if you have XMP profile RAMs, right, there is a additional profile which is known as the AMEP. You can use that. Then besides this, right, you can set all this. Okay, I'm not going to go through everything into details. Then for DRAM timing control, you can set all this if you wanted. You have the preset, you can select, or you have the DIMM feed, and all these are the timings that you can set. Now often if you know that your RAMs is running to 1:1 ratio, you can set this to U clock equal to memory clock. I will not go into details. If you want to, you can check on what does it mean by 1:1 ratio on the RAMs itself, as this will make your system run faster, as like it's synchronized without delays. Then these are the timings that you can do. Okay, just to briefly show you. So these are the things that you can do in the DRAM settings, which is this DRAM timing control. Precision boost overdrive. Now there are two sections for this to be configured. If you choose to be one click, right, as in like you wouldn't want to feeder with all the figures and such, right, you can use this precision boost overdrive, whereby you select this, right, you can just set to run on eco mode, enhanced mode and such. When on enhanced mode, right, you can set as in like you want your system to run max only at 80 degrees Celsius, 70 degrees Celsius or 90 degrees Celsius. So it's just a one click, one touch overclocking things. Or you want to run at eco mode. On eco mode, right, you can do this, setting the TDP voltage limit of your processor. You don't want to run, okay, this 9950X, right, in fact the TDP is 170. So if you want allow it to run at 170 watt, right, the system will determine itself how much it's going to pull and it will stay there. If you want it to run it lower, you can just set lower. But when you set it lower, right, do take note that there might be a slight performance decrease. Alright, so this is just a brief through on what you can do, and the rest of the PBO settings you can do over here too. Okay, now back to the extreme tweaker, and these are the things that I will just briefly run through with you. So these are the settings that you can do, and of course you can set the offset vCore if you choose to. Then you can set the CPU SoC. Now I've set it to 1.16 as I know that my RAMs can take it, as in the SoC voltage that is pulling, right, I'm going to set it to 1.16 as my RAM is able to cater for it. But if it's unstable, right, you can leave it auto or to run it below 1.2 volt. Then all this are the miscellaneous you can set if you want to. Then for the load line calibration, right, you can set, let's see, I think it's under this. Hang on a minute. Yep, you can set a load line calibration over here, which is under extreme tweaker DG plus BRM. So you can set it over here. But for now, I'll just leave it auto. Now, so this is the extreme tweaker, what it does. Coming to the advanced mode, just to brief through, show you what they are. Trust computing. Okay, these are all the security, such physical settings and such, which I will not touch. AMD FTPM, this is meant for you to run Windows 11. As in, like, to install Windows 11, you have to have this at enable, okay, which is the TPM switch. This is a requirement from Windows 11. Then the UEFI variant protection, you can set if you want to. CPU configuration, okay, these are the three configurations that you can do. PCIe PCI subsystem settings. This is whereby you set your resizable bar. Now, at all times, right, this is actually on auto, so you don't have to do anything about it. This is meant for your discrete graphic card. USB configuration. This I'll leave it as it is. Okay, and you won't be having this Jet KVM virtual media because I'm using one of the devices, so it's highlighted over here. Okay, network stack configuration, you can enable, disable. NVMe configuration, in fact, it's mainly to show you that you can do a self-test and such on your NVMe, or should I say M.2 SSD. You have the hard disk smart information, if you have any, which I do not configure. Now, for SATA configuration, do take note that I know that there are some quick swap or hot swap, whereby when your system is on, right, you can just disengage your hard drive or SSD off from your system. But make sure you configure over here, assuming the SATA port that you have plugged in, right, the SSD, right, is this. Make sure you enable the hot plug so that you can disable on Windows itself, right, and to unplug it without having to turn off the system. So do take note on this. Now, other than that, you have the APM configuration. So these are the configuration you can do. Next will be the onboard devices configuration. Now, I often use this a lot, whereby I will disable my onboard audio, which I don't use, as I'm using a external audio interface, or things that you do not need, right, you can disable them. This will speed up your system without having to verify and such. You just boot straight. Next will be the LED lightings, where you can see here. Now, this is similar to the Aura F4 over here, but the thing is that it has an additional section whereby you say Windows dynamic lightings. Now, I've set this to enable, as I do not want to install Armour crate, based on the fact that this will allow Windows to control the ARGB crest on the motherboard itself. Then at the bottom, you can set all this if you want to. PCIe link speed, you can do it manually, as in like to set. Probably this is actually your GPU. You can set it. If you're running a Gen 4, you can just set it to Gen 4. If you want to set it to, if you run on Gen 5 GPU, you can just set it to Gen 5. So with all this, right, not having it to run at auto, right, you are telling the system that say, hey, I'm using all these components, you don't have to verify, kindly boot, and it will boot faster. So this is all the advanced setting. Now, heading towards, this is actually onboard device configuration on the advanced setting. Next will be the MB configuration. So we can set this. See? Now, all this, I will just briefly show you. AMB CBS. See, these are the configuration that you can do. The CBS common. Okay, not going to go into depth, as I don't really touch on this. DF common. Okay, UMC option, or should I say common. MBO common, which I believe is actually to configure your network card. Your graphic card. SMU. Okay. Now, besides this, you have the AMD BPS. This is to set your HDMI. Now, last but not least, this is another section where you can set the precision boost overdrive. If you can remember, I mentioned to you on the extreme tweaker, right, you have this precision boost overdrive. Now, this is meant for you to have one-click solution. If you want to dig into it, as like you want to do your own configuration, go to advanced, okay, which is this, and head down to AMD overclocking. Accept the condition. Now, first thing I'll normally do, right, is to set the SoC uncall OC overclock mode. I'll set this to enable. This is got to do with your memory and the Infinity Fabric to trigger the system telling it that please perform to this, okay, the overclock mode. Then precision boost overdrive, this is where I do the settings, where you can have advanced and such. So these are the configuration that I've done, and you can do the okay, I know a lot reviewers out there, okay, some of them will just tell you to do 10 times on the precision boost overdrive scaler. I will not advise you to do this. In fact, what you're trying to tell the system is that pull as much B core or over the B core limits, which is going to be very harmful. So at all times, I'll just leave this at auto. I will not touch. Then for CPU boost clock override, I know a lot of you expert out there will just put positive and then set 200. But the 200 megahertz, right, I feel that it will bring instability. No point having that, because it's like, you know, running off your PBO limits, right, you are actually outperforming on the base clock, which, take for example this 9950X, right, the base clock is 4.3 gigahertz. And when I do all these PBO settings without this, right, without this set, okay, it's already running at 5 gig. So it's already 700 megahertz, and you want to pull another 200 more. So you're actually trying to pull as much as in, like, you know, an elastic band. When you pull too much at a long period of time, right, it runs, right, the tension will just detolerate. If not, it will snap, and that will cause instability. So I rather not do that. I'll just do the basic on the PBO2, limits, and the curve optimizer and the curve shaper. So this is up to you. If you want to use, you can go ahead, by all means go ahead. I won't stop you. Thermal throttle, well, this is, you can set it manually. You can set probably at 85 degree. Once it reaches 85 degree, right, your system will not pull any further. You will just try to cool down. So this is what I meant. But at all times, I'll just leave it to auto. When you set it to auto, right, the max thermal throttle limit will be at 95 degrees Celsius. Now, the integrated graphic curve optimizer, I will not touch. Curve optimizer, this is what I will do. Since this is a 9950X processor, it has dual CCD. So on the curve optimizer, right, as you can see over here, I do per core, which is the first 8 core, I set it to negative 20. And for the last 8 core, I'll set it to negative 15. As the last 8 core are slightly weaker, so that's why I set it this way. Next will be the curve shaper. Well, this is the advanced mode of PBO2, whereby I can fine tune it further. As you can see over here, the mid frequency, low frequency, the high frequency, and the max frequency. Now, for all these settings that I've done over here, if you do not understand, right, I will leave a description whereby it will link you to Skater Bencher. He has a good explanation on what does curve shaper does. So this is what precision boost overdrive can do. Now, that's all for the advanced mode. Now for monitor, in fact, it's similar to the QFan, but into details, where you can see as like temperature monitor. You can monitor what are the temperature on all your components. Okay, fan speed monitoring, where if you plug to all the fan headers, right, it will show you all the RPMs. Voltage monitor, showing you that your system drawing off from the PSU, right, how much it's been drawing and how healthy it is, which over here all passes, you see. Then you have the QFan configuration, whereby you can set all the fan headers that you plug your fans to, right. For example, my radiator fans, you can see I've set to PWM, turbo and such. And with all the case fans, known as the chassis fan, if you click on this, right, it will bring you to all the fan headers, chassis fan 1, 2 and such. And last but not least, the dedicated water pump and the AL pump. See, you can set over here. Next, you have the boot, the sequence of it, secure boot and such. Now for configuration on the boot option, right, you can select, as mentioned to you on easy mode. If you can remember, I've set this priority. If let's say this is Windows OS, this is Linux, I can pull this up. So with this say, right, over here you can do that too. You can set it to boot, see, to Linux. Then the second option will be the Windows OS. You can do it over here also. Or if you choose to install Windows and you come to UEFI, right, you want to boot directly to your thumb drive, you can just click over here. See, it's known as the boot override. So if you click this, right, it will boot to the USB instead of your OS. Okay, besides this, next you have tools. Over here, these are all the things that you can set. Now, as mentioned to you earlier, that there's a FlexKey you can set, either reset, you can turn off on the Aura, or you can have it safe boot SNI to boot into safe mode. So you can program that FlexKey to this function. Q dashboard, as I mentioned to you, okay, illustrated to you what's this all about. User profile, let's say you have configured all the configuration and you want to save all your configuration. You can go over here and to save accordingly, see? Or you can load it. Next will be showing you the information on your RAMs, all the JDAC and such. So you can select and it will show you. Okay, if it's empty, right, it will not show you anything. See? Next will be Asus My Hotkey. Now this is meant for you to set within the UEFI itself. So you want to disable certain things like F3 or such, right, you can just toggle, up to you. For this auto install Asus utility, this is meant where you install Windows, a fresh copy of Windows on your system. So when you boot into the home page, right, it will prompt you to install all the necessary drivers and chipset for your system, which is very handy. So I will leave this as enable and such. Now coming to exit, this is self-explained, load default settings and such. Let's say you configure everything and you want to have it default, you can do this. You have done all. Next you have done the changes and you save and you exit, and the rest I don't have to explain. Now there's something which I have not mentioned. Okay, animation. Yep, this is whereby if you enable this, right, see what will happen. It will animate, which I don't find this useful at all, but if you fancy to have that, you can do that. See, when I toggle from section to section, right, it will not animate. If you enable this, right, when you toggle from section to section, it will animate. See? So this is an instinct. I'll just disable it. And also another function, I missed out something on the boot itself. Okay, back to the boot section. Boot configuration you can set too. So these are the things that you can set. And if you want to load UEFI in advanced mode, you can do it over here. Or if you want to load in easy mode. So every time when you save and when you boot into UEFI, right, you will go into easy mode if you select this as easy mode. But most of the time I have it at advanced mode. Now, on the interface itself, I forgot to mention over on my right, where you can see all this CPU, temperature, the frequency and such, right? Right at the bottom, you have something very interesting, which is the prediction, whereby it will show you the silicon prediction. Now, the higher it goes, right, it goes from 70 all the way to 130. If your processor is at 120 or 130, right, that means to say you have a very good silicon bin processor. You can do much more higher overclocking, and it's taking lower current in order to perform. So having this SP higher, right, it does help you in overclocking and to perform much better.